Hello students, today we are going to discuss about the pituitary glands. The pituitary glands is a very active gland in the human body. A male having female also present in this. It is mainly brain region, hypothalassemia region. How the thyroid, pituitary gland is activation is mainly depends on temperature and metabolic activities and apoptosis process and respiration process. Based on that, this gland is going to activation. The structurally it is going to divide the two parts, the hypothalamus region and pituitary glands region of the infundibulism. The hypothalamus region portion called and neurosecretion region, the two regions is there. In this anterior pituitary glands and posterior pituitary gland, two regions is there in the brain region. The anterior mean the adeno hypothalamus hypophysis process, and posterior pituitary gland is nothing but neurohypothesis process. In this release of the anterior pituitary gland, it is release of the glands and glands activation and release of the few hormones. In posterior pituitary gland region, the neural secretion of the tissues. This organ, the pituitary gland having the mainly the size is 1 centimeter is there, and sela gland is there. Now this is the structure. The pituitary gland of the hypothesis is a endocrine gland in vertebrates. The humans, and the pituitary gland is located in the base of the brain region and bottom of the hypothalamus region of the brain. The human pituitary gland is oval shaped and about 1 centimeter size in the diameter and 0.1 to 1 gram of the weight of the average in the human body brain. About the size and kidney beans like structure is there. It is going to two parts is there. The objective based, the pituitary glands defined as the discuss autonomy of the pituitary gland and discuss the role of the hypothalamic hormones in the regulation of the pituitary gland secretion. Discuss the function of the hormones secreted from the anterior and posterior pituitary glands. Now pituitary glands is a master gland of the body. The pituitary gland is a small structure in the head and the main endocrine gland. The normal adult pituitary gland is a reddish gray bean shaped gland. It is also called as a master gland because it is the produced the hormone that control other glands and many body function including the growth. Anatomy of the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is a pea-sized, weight 500 mg, located at the brain. 1 centimeter diameter pituitary gland lies in the hypothalamus fossa of the sphenoid bone below of the hypothalamus. The fold of the drometer covered by the pituitary glands has an opening of the passes of the infundibulum stalk, that is nothing but a stalk connecting a gland to the hypothalamus. Now this is the exactly structure of the pituitary gland in the hypothalamus fossa of the sphenoid bone. This is the hypothalamus region and anterior loop and intermediate loop and posterior loop is there. The most probably in posterior loop is releasing oxytocin and AVP hormones. In anterior loop almost releasing a TCH, LPH and LR hormone and FSH hormone, PR hormone and GH hormones is going to release. This is the overall structure. It is connected with the neurons and along with the blood veins, arterial of the blood veins. Now, paraventricular nuclear supraoptic nuclear pituitary portion system and hypothalamus, hypophyseal tract, pituitary lobe, pituitary stalk, anterior loop, intermediate loops is the parts of the pituitary gland, is a lobe of the pituitary gland and their relationship between the hypothalamus. Division of the pituitary gland is a consist of the mainly two parts are oriented from the different types of the cell, that is the anterior pituitary glands, adeno, hypothalamus, hypophysis. It is an open growth of the glandular epithelium of the praxine. It is secreted the peptide hormones. I told na FSH growth hormones and PR growth hormones is going to release. Posterior pituitary glands, the neurohypophysia mean totally neuron related hormones, neuron structure related based the pituitary gland region is going to divided. It is a form of the nerve tissues and nerve cells. There is three types of the nerve cells is there, that is central nerve system, peripheral nerve system and nerve systems is there. The surrounding the supporting of the glia cells, the pituicytes, the store of the hormones secreted by the hypothalamus. The relation of the hypothalamus and pituitary glands in the connection between the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland results from the hormone released from the hypothalamic neurons. The hypothalamus has two different connection with the pituitary gland, connection to the adenohypophysis and interior loops via specially portion of the blood system, and whereas the connection to the neurophysis, the posterior loop directly through the neurons. This is the exactly posterior pituitary hormones and anti pituitary hormones and oxytocin molecules releasing. It is why the posterior pituitary gland is going to release the concentration of the urine sample and releasing, and another one is called as a arterial vascular secretion of the ADH and vasco through the urine sample and blood vessel. The another one is called peptides hormones is there, oxytocin molecule that is going to divide the molecules. So, this is for when coming to the oxytocin molecule, it is uterine construction purpose releasing the pituitary posterior region of the pituitary gland hormone, that is called oxytocin, that is utilizing for the urinary tracking purpose, and one is breast feeding purpose, say milk production purpose also the oxytocin is going to work out. Now, blood supplying of the pituitary gland, anterior blood supply, the superior and inferior of the hypocelia arterials branches of the internal corticoids. The anterior loops is supplied to the directly by the blood from the hypothalamus. The posterior loops is supplied to the directly venous drag connected the hormone from the both loops and venous of the blood leaves the glands and enter the venous syncytium between the lay of the durator. The paraventricular nuclear supraoptic nuclear pituitary portion of system, the hypothalamus, the hypophyseal tract, posterior loop, pituitary stalk, anterior loop, intermediate loops is there. The pituitary gland is a loop of the pituitary gland there, relation between the hypothalamus. The hormones of the pituitary glands is the example mainly endocrine glands, stimulated inhibitors and activators of the human body. So, the example is going to pituitary gland releasing adrenocorticohormones ACTH to stimulate the cortical production in the adrenal gland when are the stress. When we are going to stress feeling, the ACTH hormone is going to releasing. This is completely related to the anterior pituitary lobes region of the releasing hormone. This is going to dissolve in the water also, water dissolved peptide molecules. The anterior lobes releasing hormone of receiving the release and inhibitor hormones from the hypothalamus. This is the very mechanism, very good stress feeling. Without stress feeling, this hormone is going to, with stress the hormone is going to very high level, without stress the hormone is going to very less conditions is there. This hypothalamic hormone tell the anterior lobes, the hormone producing by the anterior pituitary gland growth hormones. These are examples of the anterior region of the hormones. This is the growth hormone, thyroid stimulated hormone TSH, and adrenocorticotropic hormone ACTH, and prolactin, and gonadotropin 1, luteinizing hormone LH2, and Follicle stimulating hormone FSH molecule. These molecules are going to, all are going to anterior region of the releasing, then they are going to activation of the or neutralizing or inhibitor of the different organelles, tissues, control the metabolism. The growth hormone releasing the stimulating by the GHRC, growth hormone releasing hormone, suppressed by the GHRIH, the growth hormone releasing inhibiting hormone secreted by the hypothalamus molecule. The secretion is also stimulated by the hypoglycemia, exercise, and anxiety. The secretion is greater during the night, sleeping the day. The growth hormone releasing inhibitor hormone also suppress the secretion of the TSH, of the gastrointestinal secretion. Now, thyroid stimulating hormone. The release of the hormone is the stimulated by the thyrotropin releasing hormone TRH from the hypothalamus. The stimulated the growth and activation of the thyroid glands. The thyroid glands secreted the thyroxine T4 and triiodothyronine T3. Its levels highest during the night. When the blood levels thyroid hormone is high, secretion TSH is the reducing. This is the very important for thyroid positions in the human body. When this pituitary glands and thyroid glands is very few are going to activation, few are going to inhibitor of the protein molecules, enzymes and substrates in the hormone level. This is the ACTH, adrenocorticotropin hormone. The secretion stimulated by the releasing of the corticotropin releasing the hormone CRH from the hypothalamus molecule, and ACTH a level is the highest at midi and the lowest of the midnight, and stimulate the synthesis and secretion of the adrenal corticosteroid hormones. They are stimulated by the hypoglycemia, stress and exercise and other emotional stress. This hormone is going to release. It is secretion suppressed by the blood level of the ACTH rising at the moment of the activity of the human being. Sometimes is going to very excitation and low excitation conditions, this molecule is going to, hormone is going to secretion. This is the prolactin. This hormone is secreted during the pregnancy of the lactation, and it is stimulated by the prolactin releasing hormone PRH from the hypothalamus, and after birth suckling stimulate the prolactin secretion and lactation process, and gonadotropin and FSH and LHH just before the puberty. Two gonadotropins are the secreted in the gradually increasing the amount of the anterior pituitary glands. The secretion is stimulated by the gonadotropin releasing hormone, luteinizing releasing the hormone LRH, and hypothalamus rising level of the hormones during the puberty, enhance the maturation of the reproduction of the organs. This totally the gonadotropin combination, fascicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulated hormones, the both male and female stimulated the production of the gametes and sperms from the ovaries and testes respectively. The luteinizing hormone LH in the female and LH and FSH stimulate the secretion of the estrogen and progesterone from the corpus luteum during the menstrual cycle level. As the level of the estrogen and progesterone rise in the blood, secretion of the LH and FSH and suppressed. In the male, LH also called as a intensively cell stimulating the releasing hormone, and it stimulate the interstitial cells and secretion the testosterone molecule. The posterior pituitary gland region. The posterior pituitary gland hormone synthesized in the nerve cells bodies only, especially the anterior pituitary gland and posterior gland. The anterior having so many hormones is going to release. In pituitary posterior region of the pituitary gland, it is going to few only two molecules, 3 molecules going to releasing and control the our LH, our hypothalamus. The posterior pituitary hormones are synthesized in the nerve cell bodies, transported along with the axon and stored in the vesicles. The total the hormone is a vesicle formation is there in the neuron. You know, neuron having the myelin sheet and transport to the in charge of the based the molecules going to as a neurotransmitter. The vesicle formation, nothing but a neurotransmitter. The vesicle within the axon terminal in the posterior pituitary glands and nerve impulse. This is important. Nerve impulse from the hypothalamus trigger the exocytosis of the vesicles and the pituitary gland releasing their hormone into the blood stream. So, the axon of the terminal releasing of the 2 hormones within the posterior pituitary glands. These are very popular hormones in the posterior pituitary glands, oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone ADH, diuretic acid and diuretic hormone, and vasopressin. Vasopressin is the one of the hormone. The neurons, vesicles containing the hypothalamic hormones ADH and oxytocin, pituitary axon terminals and hypothalamus, pituitaries, gland capillary in the pituitary of the glands and synthesis and store in the ADH and oxytocin molecule. Now, oxytocin is called as a anti-stress hormone, and oxytocin is produced in the both male and female, but it is a main physiological role seem to take the place in the female only. In this female, oxytocin is involved in the number of the importance of the physiological actions, stimulate the contraction of the uterus and stimulate the contraction of the myoepithelial cells that injection milk from the breast. The uterine muscles contraction, sensory stress receptors in the uterine cervix due to the baby head stimulate the release of the oxytocin molecule. The oxytocin stimulated the more forceful contraction of the cervix as the baby head force further downwards. It is also used clinically for the induction of the labor. The milk injection generated the sensory impulse that is transmitted from the breast from the hypothalamus. In this muscle trigger is releasing from the oxytocin from the posterior pituitary gland. Oxytocin stimulated the contraction of the milk duct and myoepithelial cells injection of the milk. It also inhibited the release of the prolactin inhibitor hormone PIH, prolactin secretion of the lactation process. Antidiuretic hormone ADH and vasopressin is the main effect of the antidiuretic hormone is the reducing the urine output. Then this is the secretion and osmotic pressure and releasing different conditions of blood pressures and water intaking process. There are so many processes there. Why it is called as a vasopressin? High water concentration increasing the volume of the pressure of the your blood. Vasopressin rise the blood pressure by constructing narrowing blood vessels. This is the hormones. Already we discussed about the growth hormones and TSH and ACTH and PRL and FSH and LSH. These are regulated the metabolisms and promote the tissue growth, especially of the bone and muscles, stimulate the growth and activity of the thyroid glands and secretion of the T3 and T4 of the thyroids. They stimulate the adrenal cortex to the secretion of the glucocorticoids, and stimulate the growth of the breast tissue and milk production, stimulate the production of the sperms in the testes, and stimulate the secretion of the estrogen by the ovaries and maturation of the ovaries, fascicles and ovulation, and stimulate the secretion of the testes by the testosterone by the testes, and stimulate the secretion of the progesterone by the corpusculus luteum. And hormone functions, some of the hormones secreted by the anterior of the pituitary glands and their functions. So, this is the overall anterior region of the releasing hormones and water soluble peptides, all are going to, all hormones is going to water soluble anterior pituitary glands, mean adreno hypophysis, and this is inhibitor hormones, dopamines, somatostatin, and so many examples is there. The different hormones having different inhibitor molecules is there, their different metabolisms is there. Now, this is the, if you are open the anterior region of the and posterior region of the section cutting of the tissue, you will look it in glandular tissues is there. The glandular tissue is hormophilic and chromophobes form is there. Two types of the glandular tissues is there in the anterior adenohypophysis. There is in this form is basophils is there and acidophils is there. These are acidophils and basophils is present in the particular anterior region of the pituitary glands, and posterior region is capillarizing region and hearing bodies release of the oxytocin and ADH molecule. These are neural tissue containing. This is the structure of the neural. If you are going to section cutting of the neuron, posterior neurohypophysis and adenophysis containing. If you again anterior region, you can open like this there, the nucleus and the collagen molecules and blue color, green color and non-basophilic cytoplasmic contents and RBC cells you are observing here in this region. You are going to observe this contentive molecule. Then the posterior, if you open posterior region, you will look light color containing molecules is there, anterior pituitary glands. Now, this is the chromophils. Now, we discussed the hormophils and chromophils region. This is the acidophilic conditions is there and basophilic conditions is there, and the cytoplasmic condition strongly dark color is there. In the dark region based the acidophilic and basophilic condition is there. Staining based purple blue color is there in the basophilic. The staining with the dark reddish color is the acidophilic conditions of the our cells of the a particular adenocyte region. Posterior neuro region of the pituitary gland, if you open, now like this the neuro secretion containing oxytocin and ADH and hearing bodies, and this is the molecules of the structure, and pituitary is their region and auxins and lytic staining is there. Now, coming to the thyroid region, thyroid glands. In the thyroid is a one type hormone, the thyroid gland and trachea and larynx regions is there, the parathyroid glands is there, and isthmus left, there is two types, right lobes and left lobes is there, and this is thyroid gland. The two lateral lobes connected by the media mass called as the isthmus. The composition of the vesicle that produce the glycoprotein thyroglobulin molecule and collides a thyroglobulin molecule with along with iodine filled with the lumen of the vesicle and is a precursor of the thyroid hormones. Pair of vesicular cells produced by the hormone of the calcitonin molecule. The gross of the autonomy of the thyroid glands. The two thyroid glands is their two lateral lobes connected by the median mass called as the isthmus. The composition of the vesicle that produce the glycoproteins, thyroglobulin collides thyroglobulin molecule plus iodine, the filled with the lumen of the vesicle and the precursor of the thyroid hormone. The paravesical cells produced by the hormone of the calcitonin. These are hormones secretion in the total thyroid regions. There is so many types is there. Now, actually two releasing hormones thyroid TH, actually two releasing of the components T4 has two tyrosine molecules and 4 bounded iodine atoms is there, and T4 triiodothyronine molecule is there, has 2 tyrosine molecule and 3 bounded iodine atoms is there. Actually affected by the very particularly every cell in the body. The major metabolism hormone, thyroid hormones, major metabolism hormones increase the metabolism rate, heart production and regulation of the tissue growth and development of the skeletal and nerve systems and the reproductive capabilities and maintaining the blood pressure also under TH and T4 and T3. The synthesis of thyroid hormone. Thyroid glands store the hormones extracellularly, thyroglobulin synthesized and discharged into the vesicle lumens, iodine and actually taken into the cell as releasing into the lumen iodide oxidized of iodine. The iodine attached to the tyrosine and mediate to the peroxidase enzymes. This is very important for peroxidase enzymes in the thyroid regions. The synthesis of the thyroid hormones, iodinated tyrosine linked together form of the T3 and T4 colloidal endocytosed and combined with the lysosomes and T3, T4 and cleaved a diffusion of the bloodstream. The thyroid glands, these are physical synthesis of and secretion of the thyroids and metabolism hormones and physical function of the thyroid hormones, and these are metabolism to conversion the how they are going to activation of the T4 conversion, hypothalamus to production of the thyroid hormones T3, T4 and thyroid glands activation, thyroid stimulation hormones, the anterior region of the content, and this is the overall thyroid hormones is going to releasing of the from all cells. The thyroid hormone is mainly calcitonin and T4, T3 and TSH molecule producing at pituitary gland region at activation and TRH molecule, then it will go hypothalamus activation, then it will convert it to the hypothalamus and hypothalamus to anterior pituitary glands and thyroid stimulating hormones and thyroid glands is activates the T3 and T4. The low BM, why the hormones is going to activation in different stages, excess iodine intaking process and stressing and osmo stressing and glucocorticoids and dopamine taking inhibitors molecules. When stimulating molecules go low BMR level leptin and stimulating the hormones in different hormones going to activation of the hypothalamus, then automatically the hypothalamus is going to activation of the thyroid hormones and TCH and TSH and T3, T4 and calcitonin. These are our thyroid related mechanism. Thank you.